Join me as I dive deep into what the Bible really says about the end times and see if I can uncover some mind-blowing prophecies. The concept of end times, as described in the Bible, is one that has fascinated and intimidated people for centuries. Throughout history, humanity has been both intrigued and fearful of what might happen in the final days. Every era has had its share of predictions and interpretations, leading many to ponder, are we living in the end times? This question becomes even more pressing when we look at the world today, where social, political, and environmental upheavals are at an all-time high. Whether we are seeing signs of the end or not, it's clear that the topic remains relevant and vital to discuss. Why is this topic so timeless? Perhaps it's because the idea of a climactic end to human history evokes both fear and curiosity. For many, the notion of a definitive conclusion to the current age forces them to reflect on their beliefs, their future, and what might lie beyond this life. There's a lot of confusion surrounding biblical prophecy and the end times. Many people believe that it's all just symbolic or metaphorical, while others think it's a literal description of events that will unfold. Some say it's already happened, while others believe it's yet to come. With so many differing interpretations, it's no wonder people get frustrated and give up trying to understand it. But I believe that with a clear mind and an open heart, we can gain a deeper understanding of what the Bible is really saying about the end times. One of the main reasons for the confusion is that many people try to interpret prophecy through the lens of current events, rather than understanding the historical and cultural context in which it was written. This can lead to some pretty wild and inaccurate conclusions. Throughout history, there have been numerous instances of people misinterpreting prophetic passages. For example, during the turn of the first millennium, around the year 1000 AD, there was widespread panic and anticipation of the end times across Europe. Many believed that the 1,000-year mark was the fulfillment of the prophecy in Revelation 20, which speaks of Satan being bound for 1,000 years before being released. This panic led to societal unrest, religious fervor, and even violence in some cases. Fast forward to the year 2000, and we see a similar phenomenon with the Y2K scare, where some feared that the turn of the century would trigger apocalyptic events. This tendency to correlate contemporary events with prophetic writings has persisted through various historical periods, leading to both insightful reflections and misguided predictions. As we delve deeper into biblical prophecy, it becomes clear that it's not about trying to predict the future or sensationalize certain events. Rather, it's about understanding the heart of God and His plan for humanity. When we approach prophecy with humility and a willingness to learn, we can gain a deeper understanding of the Bible and its message of hope and redemption. Prophecies aren't merely about forecasting doom and destruction, but about offering hope amidst the chaos. They reveal God's character, His justice, His mercy, and His desire to restore His creation. When read through this lens, prophecies become less about trying to predict the next major world event and more about understanding the bigger picture of God's plan. Biblical prophecies often have a dual nature, addressing both the immediate circumstances of the time in which they were written and a future fulfillment. For example, many of the prophecies in the book of Isaiah address the political and spiritual issues facing Israel and Judah at that moment in history. Yet, at the same time, they pointed to a future time when God's ultimate plan for redemption would be realized through the coming of a Messiah. So what do we do with all these different interpretations and opinions? I believe the key is to go back to the source, the Bible itself. By studying the scriptures in context, we can gain a deeper understanding of what God is saying to us about the end times. We need to be careful not to impose our own biases and assumptions onto the text, but rather let it speak for itself. When studying the end times, we must consider the context in which these texts were written. For instance, when the Apostle John wrote the book of Revelation, he was addressing the early Christian church, which was under severe persecution from the Roman Empire. Understanding this context sheds light on why the imagery and messages in Revelation are so intense and urgent. In addition, the prophetic language often used by the biblical writers was intended to communicate hope to God's people in times of trouble. The imagery of beasts, plagues, and judgments was not merely a prediction of catastrophic events, but a reminder that God is sovereign and that his justice will ultimately prevail. Delving into key biblical passages that speak about the end times, such as Revelations, Matthew 24, and others, can be a fascinating and eye-opening experience. One of the most striking things about these passages is the way they weave together seemingly disparate threads of prophecy and symbolism. In Revelations, for example, we see vivid descriptions of end-time events, including the return of Jesus and the ultimate triumph of good over evil. The book of Revelation, with its vivid imagery and complex symbolism, has been the subject of much debate. Some see the 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 bowls as literal judgments that will unfold in the future, while others interpret them as symbolic of spiritual realities or historical events. The mark of the beast, for example, has sparked countless discussions, with some interpreting it as a literal mark or number, and others seeing it as a metaphor for loyalty to a corrupt system. In Matthew 24, Jesus himself describes what to expect in the end times, warning of wars, famines, and false prophets. But he also emphasizes that these events are the beginning of birth pains and urges his followers not to be alarmed. This passage is often viewed as both a warning and a call to remain vigilant and steadfast in faith, regardless of the turmoil around us. When we take the time to study these passages in depth, we begin to see a much larger picture emerge, one that is full of hope and promise, rather than fear and uncertainty. This broad view helps us to understand that biblical prophecy is not merely a code to be deciphered, but a message to be embraced. One of the most compelling prophecies or revelations from the Bible that resonates with current global events is the concept of a global government or one-world system. In Revelations, we see a description of a powerful and charismatic leader who rises to power, promising peace and security to a world in chaos. This leader, often referred to as the Antichrist, is said to be in direct opposition to God and his people, and will ultimately be defeated in a final showdown. As we look around at the world today, it's hard not to see echoes of this prophecy in the increasing push for globalism and a one-world government. Political movements that advocate for global unity and centralized power can be seen as reflective of these warnings. Of course, whether or not this is a literal fulfillment of prophecy remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the Bible's warnings about the dangers of a powerful and corrupt government are more relevant today than ever. Another prophecy that resonates with current events is the concept of a global economic system that will ultimately be controlled by a single entity. In Revelations, we see a description of a time when people are forced to receive a mark or identification number in order to buy or sell goods. This mark is said to be the mark of the beast and is seen as a symbol of allegiance to the Antichrist. As we see the rise of digital currencies and cashless societies, it's hard not to wonder if this prophecy is being fulfilled before our very eyes. And finally, the Bible's warnings about the rise of false prophets and false Christs are echoed in the proliferation of false teachers and charlatans who claim to have the truth. Today, we see many individuals and movements claiming to possess special knowledge or divine authority, leading many astray. This serves as a stark reminder of Jesus' warning to his disciples to beware of false prophets who come in sheep's clothing, but are ravenous wolves. Matthew 7:15. In a digital age where information is abundant, the line between truth and deception becomes increasingly blurred. Taking all of this into account, it's clear that understanding biblical prophecy is more important today than ever. As we see the world around us changing at a rapid pace, we need to be anchored in the truth of God's Word. By studying the Bible and understanding its message of hope and redemption, we can navigate even the most uncertain times with confidence and faith. This doesn't mean living in fear or obsessing over current events, but rather finding peace in the knowledge that God has a plan and that His Word has proven true time and time again. Prophecy serves as a beacon of hope, reminding us that despite the chaos and uncertainty, there is a divine purpose at work. If you're interested in diving deeper into these topics, I encourage you to explore the broader context of biblical prophecies, considering both historical fulfillments and possible future events. Remember that Understanding prophecy requires patience, humility, and an open heart. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the world of biblical prophecy. I'd love to hear your thoughts on end times prophecy in the comments below. What do you think about these interpretations? Are we seeing signs of the end times today, or is there another way to understand these prophecies? Let's keep the conversation going. And if you're curious to learn more about this topic, be sure to check out my next video on the top 5 biblical prophecies that are being fulfilled today. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on future content.